Hi everyone, welcome to the Jayda InStitches show. It is starting to warm up out there, which means soon we'll be exchanging our hats for things like hairbands. And in honor of the lovely warm weather ahead, we've designed a new hairband pattern for you all today. This little hairband has ties and has a really delicate little look. We're going to be using 24/7 cotton by Lion Brand Yarns for today's tutorial, and we'd like to thank Lion Brand Yarns for sponsoring today's video. We're going to link to lionbrand.com in the description box and the pinned comment down below, so you can easily pop over there and check out all of the different colors that 24/7 cotton comes in. And there are a lot of them, so don't be surprised if you wind up filling up your shopping cart with a little extra yarn than you were already anticipating. 24/7 cotton yarn makes a particularly good choice for a project like this because not only is it 100% cotton, it's also mercerized, which means that the yarn itself has a really nice tight weave, and that weave will keep your work from pilling and will also maintain that nice, sleek, professional look a lot longer than regular cotton will. You'll also notice that we've added some beads to today's hairband project. Now this is totally optional, we're going to show you how to do that in the tutorial, but I feel that that nice little detail takes this otherwise really cute little accessory all the way from casual up to garden party or possibly even bridal party status. And today's video we're also going to explain how to make this to fit children, teens and ladies with a small medium head, or even larger heads with lots of hair. And because it's made with ties, this is an easily adjustable hairpiece to fit any sized head, no matter how much hair you might have. So let's grab our hooks, we'll grab our 24/7 cotton yarn, we'll head on over to the craft table, and let's stitch it up together. In order to make our hairbands, we're using 24/7 cotton by Lion Brand. Each of these balls of yarn is 186 yards or around 170 meters, and you only need between 40 and 50 yards per hairband, so you'll easily get at least 3 hairbands out of one ball of yarn. This is a size 4 medium weight 100% cotton yarn, and I especially love the 24/7 cotton yarn for hair accessories because it's mercerized. Really great weave. You're going to want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and the hook we're using today is a 4.5 millimeter, also known as a size 7. You can also use a G or a 6 for this project, and sometimes G6s are known as a 4.25 millimeter, but the difference between those two hooks is very small and won't make a difference for this project. And beading is optional. If you want to add some beads to your hairband like I've done, you can use beads of any size you like. You'll need 12 for a child. You'll need 14 for a small, medium, ladies or teens hairband size, and you'll need about 16 for a large size, so not that many. And you can find beads in any craft store that you go looking in. And you will need a needle and some thread to sew your beads down. This is not a complicated sewing practice. I'm going to take you through that in the tutorial, but make sure that you have a needle that will fit through the holes in your beads. That's very important. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. Please visit our shop and purchase a pattern. It helps support our show, and we'll put a link to our shop in the description box down below. Our hairbands are made all in one go, so we make the ties and the hairband, the whole thing at once, so there's no fastening off in between. We're all going to start with hair tie number 1. So we're going to make a slip knot and put that on our hook. And no matter what size of a hairband you're making, we're all going to begin by chaining 51, 5-1. Once you have 51 chains, so that's 5-1, you're going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook. So we skip the first chain, find the second one, and slip stitch. I'm just going to be slip stitching underneath the top loop only. That's just for simplicity's sake. You're going to slip stitch into each chain all the way back. So you'll have 50 slip stitches. And just take your time. Try not to slip stitch too tightly or too loosely. There's no reason to speed here. You want to create a nice, even bunch of slip stitches. And remember, you can always pause and kind of pull on it, and that will help even out your stitches as you go. Once you've slip stitched in each chain all the way back to the beginning, you can take your tie and just sort of pull on it. That will help even out those little stitches, and it should give you quite a little bit of stretch, and it should be certainly more than 12 inches long or 30 centimeters once you stretch the whole thing out. So that's tie number 1. Now we're going to build the middle part, or the cute little circular part of our pattern, or the headband. So from this point, we're going to create some chains. If you're making this for a child, you're going to chain 49. If you're making this for a lady's head or a teen's head that's a small medium-sized head, then you'll chain 57. And if you've got a larger noggin or a whole lot of hair, then you can chain 65. So 49 for a child, 57 for teens, ladies, small, medium, or 65 for a larger head. Once you've chained 49 for a child, 57 for a small, medium, ladies or teens head, or 65 for a larger head or a head with a lot of hair, you should have something that looks like this. We're going to try not to spin our foundation chains here, but we're just going to work at them one at a time, so they're easy enough to just sort of keep facing upright if you move along nice and slowly. Here we go. We're going to skip the first chain from the hook and slip stitch into the next chain. You're going to skip the next chain and work 5 double crochets into the chain after that. So there's 5 double crochet all worked into the same chain. It's going to open up that chain a little bit, and this is going to create a half circle. Then we're going to skip the next chain, find the chain after that, and slip stitch into it. And once again, I'm using the top loops of the chains only. And there's the first half of a circle complete. Let's do another one. We're going to skip the next chain, find the chain after that, and work 5 double crochet into it. And I'm using the top loop of the chain . So there's 5 double crochet all worked into one chain. Makes it kind of large, it's easy to see. You skip the next chain and slip stitch into the chain after that. So every little half circle motif is completed over the case of 4 chains. So you need 4 chains in total to complete a half circle, because in between half circles we're slip stitching. Skip a chain, work 5 double crochets into the next chain. It's 5 double crochets, skip the next chain, and slip stitch into the chain after that. And that is all you're going to do all the way across. If you're making the child's headband, you will have 12 half circles at the end of this row. If you're making the lady's small medium, it will be 14 half circles, and it will be 16 half circles if you're making the large version. And of course, you're just going to continue this little pattern all the way across until you get back to where your tie is. And I'll hook up with you there. point that you've worked the last 5 double crochet into one of your chains all the way across, at this point you should have 12 half circles if you're making it for a child, 14 if you're making it for a teen or a lady small medium, and 16 if you're making it for a large size. And the last slip stitch you're going to do, you're going to skip the last chain that you've got and you're going to slip stitch right into the top of your tie. So here's that little tail you started with. You're going to slip stitch into the top of that tie. Now, if you want to, you can work over top of your tie as we are going to rotate our work. So now your tie is standing out sort of the side, and we're going to be working back across the underside of our foundation chain row, and I'm going to take the opportunity to work over top of my little short tail. You can leave it out and weave it in later if you want, if that's easier. It's entirely up to you, and it won't change the pattern at all. This is much easier on the return pass, in my humble opinion. Into the underside of those 5 double crochets, so the first one you've got, it's pretty easy to see. There's the nice big space that they were all worked into. You're going to work 5 double crochets into that same place. So that's 5 double crochets into the underside of the 5 double crochets on the opposite side of our foundation chain row. You're going to skip a chain, or more likely it's easy to see where you slip stitched into the next chain, and you're going to slip stitch directly into the underside of that same slip stitch, and that will complete our little circle. So there is one complete circle motif now, and you see there's a nice little circle space in the middle, perfect for a little bead. Then you look for the next underside of a 5 double crochet. It's usually pretty easy to see because there's a big space there, and you work your 5 double crochet into that. I'm going to try and get my little tail to cooperate with me. 5 double crochet into the underside of the other 5 double crochet, and of course this will complete a complete circle. So there's my 5 double crochet. I look to see where the slip stitch between the other half circles was. There it is right there. And I'm just going to slip stitch right into the same place underneath it. And that completes a second circle. And now you've got these little circles running all the way back because we're completing them as we go. And however many half circles you had coming one direction, you're going to be you'll have exactly the same number going the opposite direction, of course, because we're working the other half circle directly underneath the half circle from the row before, and we're slip stitching in between, and the slip stitches go into the bottom of the slip stitches from the other side. So you're mirroring exactly what you did on one side of the foundation chains, so that it looks like a mirror image all the way back. So 5 double crochet, slip stitch, 5 double crochet, slip stitch. And at the end, you will have 12 perfect little circles for a child, 14 for a small or teen ladies, small medium, and 16 for a large hairband. I'll see you back at the start, at the finish. I'm not sure. What is that? Once you've repeated that little pattern all the way back, you'll have all of your little finished circles, and don't worry if some of them want to sort of pull up or fold over each other. This will all get flattened when we finish our headbands here at the end. When you finish your last 5 double crochet into the bottom of the 5 double crochet from the opposite side, you're going to skip that chain, and you're going to find the little slip stitch that you started that part of the headband in, and just slip stitch right into it. So you're just closing off that last circle. So now we've got tie number 1, we've got our hairband mostly finished, and now we just need to make tie number 2. Tie number 2 is the exact same thing as tie number 1. We're all going to chain 51 chains, that's 5-1, and we're going to slip stitch into the second chain from the hook and slip stitch in each chain all the way back. But just in case you forgot what that looks like, chain 51 and I'll catch up with you at the bottom. Once you have 51 chains, that's 5-1, all the way off the edge of your hairband, you're going to do what you did for tie number 1. You're going to skip the first chain from the hook, find the second one. Again, I'm using the top loop only, and you're just going to slip stitch. Slip stitch into each chain all the way back. You'll have 50 slipped stitches, and that will put us right back at the edge of our hairband, and we'll be all done the crochet. Once you've slip stitched into each chain all the way back, remember you can give it a tug. That will help smooth out all of those little stitches. And to finish, we're just going to slip stitch right back into the edge of that little hairband design. And now you can fasten off. That's it for the crochet, and if you don't want to add any beads, you're all done. All you have to do is weave in your tail. So make sure that's nice and tight. Grab your yarn needle, flip it upside down so that you're weaving in your tail along the underside of your little circles. And I'm just going to weave them in underneath the double crochet stitches. So I'll just maybe pick up this little slip stitch here. And I'm not going to pull too tightly because I don't want to pull any of my little circles out of alignment. So first I'm going to make sure that it's in there nice and tight. Tug back on it a little bit, and now I'm going to double back on some of those same stitches just so that my tail does not want to come undone. There we go. All neatly woven in. If you still have one on the other side, make sure you weave that one in too, unless of course you worked over top of it like I did. And then you can just sort of go down the length of your hairband and tug out those little circles so that you get this really pretty little scalloped shape on both sides. And now, if you want to add some beads, and I'm going to be adding some beads to mine, you've got perfect little holes in between all of your little circles. Now if you wanted to add a bead in between every single space, you could do that too, in which case you'd need double the number of beads. So again, it's 1 bead for each circle, 12, 14, or 16, depending on the size. And if you want to double it up, 1 for each sort of circle center and 1 in between, then you'd have 24, 28, or 32. I'm quickly doing math in my head here. So however many buttons, or I should say beads, you need, you can grab your beads, grab your needle and thread, and we'll start doing a little bit of sewing. An easy way to figure out how much thread you need for this is to unwind your thread off of your bobbin or your spool, and I like to hold one end to the edge of my hairband, pull it across to the one side so I have at least one length of thread that's as long as my hairband. Do it again, and do it a third time. So you want 3 times the length of the pattern part of your hairband. So that's it for the thread. Now you want to thread up your needle. This can be tricky if you don't have the best eyesight. I find this gets difficult with a little bit more difficulty every year, but there we go. Thread it up. If you have a needle threader, so much the better. You're going to double up the length of your thread, so you're going to bring both ends together. You can sort of see them against my fingers there. Bring both ends together and knot them. I just wrap them around my finger, roll it off, and then pull back. And that creates a pretty nice little knot. You definitely want to use thread that's the same color as your yarn so that it won't show. Then you're going to pick up your hairband, flip it over so you're looking at the back. We're going to anchor our yarn underneath some of the yarn, I should say we're going to anchor our thread underneath the yarn at the very edge of our hairband. And I'm going to pull it almost all the way through. I'm going to slip my needle in between the two threads of the beading threads. You can sort of see that right through the loop there. Pull back, and that will help secure it, so it doesn't want to go anywhere. Now this is pretty delicate work. If you feel like this hairband is going to get roughed around a lot, or maybe you're giving it to somebody who's kind of rough on their hairbands, you might want to sew individual beads in a little bit more than I'm about to. But if you're just going to wear it gently over your head like I plan to, then you really don't need to worry about the sewing too much. So the first thing we're going to do is bring our needle through. You're going to try and split the yarn right at the edge of the first space in the middle of your circle. You can bust out our beads now. I'm going to just pour some into the lid here. Pick up a bead. There we go. Now I want my bead to sit right in the center of that little circle. So I'm just going to poke my needle back through the yarn. So I want to get through the yarn as much as I can. And if you're putting beads in between slip stitches, you'll bring your needle out right here at the edge of the next hole and add another bead. If you're going to bypass it, you're going to slip your needle underneath the slip stitch, split some of that yarn and bring it out alongside the next hole in the middle of the next circle. Do not pull tightly. So just gently guide your thread through. This will become easier the more beads you've got down because your thread will get shorter and shorter and shorter. Give it a nice little tug to make sure none of your threads are out of alignment, but don't pull too tightly because you don't want to end up squishing or pinching your hairband together. And it will sit right in the middle of your little circle. And like I said, if you want to add them in between slip stitches, you'll just add one there as well and keep going. Let's add another one. So I've brought my needle out right at the edge of the next space. I'm going to pick up another bead, thread it back down, take my needle, poke it through the yarn on the other side of that little circle. I'm not putting my beads in between the slip stitches, so I'm going to go right up and underneath that slip stitch and then poke my needle through the yarn and bring it out so that it's ready to go at the edge of the next space. Carefully pull my thread, making sure that my thread doesn't get knotted or twisted. And again, that will get easier and easier the more beads you add because your thread gets smaller and smaller. And there, it sits right in the middle of the circle, exactly where it's supposed to. That looks so delicate. I think this sort of screams bridal party, doesn't it? And that is what you're going to do all the way across. Just keep adding beads, making sure that you don't pull too tightly on your thread because you don't want to pinch your little circles. Make sure you take the time to split the yarn because that will help hide the thread and also make it stronger. There we go. Be careful not to poke yourself, and I'll see you at the end of our little hairband. Once you've put the last bead in the last center of your circles, take a moment to just very gently pull down the length of your hairband, making sure that you haven't drawn your thread too tight, in which case you might sort of want to pucker or pinch your little circles. This is just a nice thing to do before we knot off. I've got my needle hanging here. There we go. We're going to take our needles, we're just going to poke it through the edge of our hairband right next to the tie, flip it over so that we're on the other side, and we're going to knot off. I just like to make little loops, bring my yarn back, or bring my thread through the loop and pull it tightly, and just do this a few times. So I'm going to split the yarn just so I know it's
a nice tight little knot. I'm going to do that 3 times. You can knot off however you like to, as long as you know it's not going to go anywhere. And then, just like I would be weaving in yarn, I'm going to pull my needle and thread underneath some stitches. I'm going to double back, and because it's so small and fine, I'm going to do this 2 or 3 times, just because I know that will help keep my thread from wanting to unravel. Trim any excess. Take your needle and put it back in your pin cushion because you don't want to lose it. There's nothing worse than stepping on a needle. Whoa. And then you're all done. One pretty dainty spring or summery little hairband. Oh my gosh, this is so cute. And of course, this looks lovely in every color you could possibly imagine. I'm probably going to make a few of them. I already have 2. I'm thinking some pretty pastels. I might make some to match my summery clothes. Some of my favorite colors maybe for the beach. There's a whole lot of potential in this one pretty little pattern.
And there you have it. A really simple, very delicate, and quite pretty hairband. It looks nice with or without the beads, and you can change up the sides of beads to suit the kind of hairband accessory you want to have. We'd like to thank Lion Brand Yarns again for sponsoring today's video. I'm a particularly enthusiastic user of the 24/7 cotton. I really love it. In fact, of all the cotton yarns I've ever used, this is my favorite. I just love that it's mercerized. I love that smooth feel. I feel it's really easy to work with, and it just looks so good for so long. It's definitely my go-to for wearable art. We hope you enjoyed today's video, and we will see you soon here on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a really pretty week. Bye, everybody.
Hi everybody, Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.